I doing wrong? It's not meant to be.
So we'll get it. We'll get it. Good evening. I'm Brandon Dawkins with the Trussville Tribune, and I'm joined by Scott Buttram, publisher of the Trussville Tribune. We apologize for the technical difficulties. We had a little glitch in our system, but it looks like things are running up and running now, so we can get started with our second round, our second night of live political forums. You tell our audience who we've got with us tonight.
We have Councilman Alan Taylor. Alan is running for place number 2 with the Trussville City Council. He is facing John Payne as his challenger. We invited Mr. Payne, but he was not able to make it tonight, so we will just have Councilman Taylor here answering questions, and he has graciously agreed to be here by himself and do it solo.
That's right, so we'll get started.
We will. Let's go ahead and introduce Councilman Taylor, and he can make his opening remarks at this time. Okay. Councilman Taylor?
Well, Scott, Brandon, thank y'all so much for doing this and for having me. It's a pleasure to be a city councilman in Trussville. Been a city councilman the last 4 years, and it's been a great 4 years. We've seen a lot of success in our city. We've seen growth, but there's still more to do. And so I'm looking forward to serving another 4 years and continuing the work that we've started this first 4 years.
Okay, Brandon, would you like to go ahead and start with the questions for Councilman Taylor?
Sure, absolutely. Well, Mr. Taylor, the biggest issue in this race so far continues to be downtown redevelopment. So let's start there. What should the city's involvement in downtown redevelopment be? And if this includes funding, where would those funds come from?
Well, Brandon, that's a great question. And if you listen to every candidate, the downtown revitalization is on all of our minds. It's what we want to do. It's what needs to be done. It's what our citizens are asking for. And we can do that, and we're going to have to assist, and we have assisted. We've bought some properties down there. We've torn some down at downtown. Parking is an issue, and so we've been working on parking. But the biggest thing we got to do is attract people that want to come and bring their businesses to downtown Trussville. That's going to include some cleanup that we've got to get done down there, and we have the funding. We own a lot of properties in Trussville, and there's some that we're looking at that we need to do something with, because we own some properties that we have debt on that are not producing revenues, and we've held on to for a long time. And so we've got to look at those. We've got to find a way to do some things with those, and then we have some revenues that we can invest in downtown.
Back to your comment about attracting some businesses to downtown Trussville, what specifically can the city do? And I understand upgrading and improving infrastructure is a big part of that, but beyond that, what specifically can the city do to attract businesses to the downtown area?
Well, there's a lot of things we can do. One is we've got to go out and search those people out. We need to be proactive in going out and finding these businesses. As I travel around the city and the state, you hear people that say, we want to come to Trussville. We want to have a business in Trussville. So we need to first go out and seek them and tell them we want to have them in Trussville. Then we have ways. There's ways we can give them tax abatements, but there's also other things that we can do to offer financial help for them to come and bring a business that's going to produce revenues for Trussville.
Staying on that theme, when you mention recruiting businesses to downtown, would that come from contracting with an outside recruiter, or could that come from creating an office within the city that recruits business, industry, type things like that on behalf of the city on a full-time basis?
It really could come from both, and I think that's an option that we need to explore. Right now, we get some help from some people in the business, in the real estate business, that's trying to help us with properties and with people looking to come to Trussville. But we also may need down the road to look at having our own person, our own economic development person to come and help us go out and search those out. Trussville's in that area where, we're not a big city, but we're not a small city. So we had great growth, but, we're that 20,000 people mark, and that's where we need to start looking at those kind of things.
Mr. Taylor, you mentioned a little bit about, cleaning up downtown as a part of the process of redevelopment, but if you had to say what's the greatest obstacle to downtown redevelopment, what would it be?
Well, I think the greatest obstacle has been us just not getting things done. We know what needs to be done. We have a downtown redevelopment authority that has done an outstanding job. We've contracted with an architect that has a great plan. And so we have a focus for downtown, and we did not have that for a long time. And I can tell you that focus has really gained some strength in the last 2 years. As we said, we need to focus on a quadrant, and that's what we're doing now in downtown. And we need to get in there. We've bought some properties, but if you ride through there today, it's still not attractive. And we need to get in there and clean it up, fix the sidewalks, help some of these businesses to make their business look more attractive. And we've started that process. Downtown Redevelopment has started a grant program, and where these businesses can apply for a grant to help, do some facelift on their businesses. And that's what we need to do to help.
I'm glad you actually can follow up on that. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's a question I get asked a lot. People see the pictures of that plan. We show them on the website a lot. They're in the newspaper a lot. But they do, I think people wonder, how is a business owner supposed to follow that exactly? And is it going to be through the grant process? Well,
that's one of the ways. We've had businesses that's wanted to locate here that's talked to us, the council, through the RDA about, some tax abatements and those kind of things. But yeah, we've put this grant program in place so that businesses can come and apply to have us help them uplift and help their buildings. And that's what it's in place for.
You mentioned the grant program, and that's a fairly new program. That was brought to the council by the Redevelopment Authority very recently. But we still don't have a funding mechanism for that grant program. As a councilman, where in the budget do you see the money to fund that grant program?
Well, Scott, it all comes down to priorities. And the priority has got to be put on downtown. Like I said before, we own a lot of properties that are sitting there doing nothing, that we bought for whatever reason, some of them 10, 11 years ago, that are sitting there not producing revenues. We're not putting parks there. We're not doing anything. This year alone, we're about $1 million ahead of revenue. There is revenues that are available, but we got to focus them there, and we have not done that. We have not put those focuses on those areas that we say that are important to us. And this council that's sitting right now has tried to change that and to move us toward focusing on that really one quadrant in downtown.
You mentioned the surplus properties. So just to be clear, you would favor selling off some of those properties and investing that money in downtown?
I say we either got to sell them off or we got to use them for what we said we were going to buy them for originally. I don't think we've had a councilman in the last 10 or 15 years, I don't know, I can only speak for us, but I don't think we have, that feels like Trussville is financially stable enough to go out and buy speculative property and hold on to it for 10, 15, 20, or 25 years. So we've bought those properties, we're holding on to them, we also have debt on them, and we either need to turn those properties into revenue producers, we need to build parks there. That was a big theme at the last forum, is we need parks. And we own some properties that are sitting there that if that's what we bought them for, that's what we need to do with them.
We asked you with questions about downtown redevelopment, but if you had to pick the top 3 issues facing Trussville, what would those 3 issues be from the perspective of, since you've already served on the council?
Well, including downtown. I mean, I think number 1 is downtown, because that's what we hear more and more from people. We need to redevelop that downtown. We want our young families that are moving out here by the multitudes. We want them to eat here. We want them to shop here. rather than going to other places. And so that downtown is our top priority. The other thing we hear a lot about is traffic. And what can we do with traffic, on Highway 11? And, it's irritating to be sitting on Highway 11 backed up in traffic. But we have a plan in place. We've been talking about for several years the Valley Road and making that an entrance to Pinnacle. And we've talked about it and we've talked about it. It's time we do something. That the Valley Road property that goes up into the backside of the Pinnacle, the completion of that would immediately take pressure off of Highway 11. And long before I even came on the council, they were talking about, the administration, the current leadership was talking about, we need to get that done. And we were close to getting that done. And, 4 years later, it's still not done. We need to make that a priority.
Where does that project stand right now? We've seen the entrance developed on the Pinnacle end. Haven't seen anything on the Valley Road end that I'm aware of. So where exactly is that project at this moment?
And what stalled it?
The answer we get, it's in the engineering stage. At one point, I thought I was told that we owned all the properties. Now I understand there's still one property along the right of way we don't own. And so again, it comes back to, we got to have a plan. And we need to prioritize things. We need to have a plan, and we need to move forward with those plans and get some of these things done.
Moving away from downtown a little bit, we're all aware that citizens are concerned about the prolonged construction at Civitan Park. We know, because we've publicized that through the Tribune, through story after story after story, that is an ALDOT project. That the city really does not have much control over that project. Given the 5-year history and what we've gone through, as a councilman, what would you do differently involving the Civitan Park project today if you had it to do over again?
Well, if you look back, the first time, and you understand the statute, the city council can't direct departments to do anything. That's not part by statute that we do. But looking back, when that thing went bad the first time, knowing what now we've spent and knowing what the delays were, looking back, I think we probably should have taken that project over ourselves and just finished it. It would have cost us a little more money, but it would be done and our citizens would be enjoying it. I'm not second guessing the administration that chose not to do that. I'm just saying, if you have the privilege to look back and redo something, I think that's what every city councilman that's sitting there now would say. We probably should have just taken that project over and finished it ourselves.
What's the most current time frame on when that park will be turned back over to the city?
Well, the contract says it's supposed to be through November 23rd or somewhere in that vicinity. There's pretty significant liquidated damages past that. I'm not a construction guru, but I ride by that park every single day. And maybe it's going to be done November the 23rd, but just from my financial eyes, I don't see it being finished then. And what happens after that, I don't know.
Switching gears again, the council currently has a policy of reappointing committee, board, and authority members if they wish to continue to serve. Do you agree with that policy, or do you believe expired terms should be open to applications from other residents?
In my involvement, since I've been on there, when we've had a school board appointment, that's where I'm the liaison to. We've interviewed other applicants. Time before last, when we had an appointment, we had 8 or 10 people that came in and interviewed for those positions. So I think we have interviewed. There's a lot of talk about term limits and should we have term limits and not. In elected races, you really do have term limits. If you don't like the job they're doing, you vote them out. But I'm not against term limits. I do think you can serve too long. But I do think that we as a council need to, on every single board that we appoint, we need to get the most qualified person to help us serve in that capacity. If they've been on there before and they're still the most qualified, then you should consider that. But we ought to every time look for people that fit together, mix together, and help us to achieve the purposes we want to in each one of those boards.
To clarify your answer, I do recall that we did interviews for a board appointment. I believe Kathy Brown was appointed that time. But we're referring to other years when a term comes up and that member, and not just the school board, I would include the industrial board, Downtown Redevelopment Authority, in the committees within the city. The policy seems to be that when those openings come, if that individual whose term is expiring would like to continue to serve, that reappointment comes without opening it up or without interviews. So that's specifically what we're addressing.
Yeah, and in the other areas, I can't speak exactly to how they go through the process. I know typically the way that it happens is the liaison assigned to that particular area works with the area or the current board, and they talk through that, and then they present back to the council their recommendation. So they may be doing some interviews on some of those, they may not. But you know, both of you, I agree with you. I think sometimes we do continue to point the same people over and over again, and we need to look at that. There's no question we need to look at that. We have a lot of talent in Trussville. We have some very, very talented and smart people, and we need to look at the way we're doing that.
I wanted to move to law enforcement. We're a city of 21,000 residents. We often have several times that many coming into Trussville to shop. I often say we're a city of 20,000 with shopping for 2 million. We may not be too far off that on some occasions, though that might be somewhat of an exaggeration. But in order to keep people coming to Trussville and shopping, they have to feel safe when they come here. Are we providing enough for our police force? Is our police force staffed to the point, not that they can just cover a city of 20,000 people, but they can protect these tens of thousands of people who come to Trussville to shop?
Yeah, and Scott, really, police is a high priority for all of us because we want to have a safe city, and I think we are. You know, when I don't remember one time that our police chief or our fire chief has come to us and said, look, I need people, I need help, that we hadn't responded. I don't remember in my 4 years of being on here where we said, no, you've got enough people. If they've come to us and they've brought those people, we've approved them because it's important to us. We will, after we finish completion of our 2 schools, our 2 new elementary schools, we're going to have 9 resource officers. We have 9 officers that the city picks up the tab for to put in our schools. Why are we doing that? We want our schools to be safe. We want our kids to be able to come to school and feel like I can be there and I don't have to worry. We want parents to feel like I can drop my kids off there and they're going to be safe. And so we've done that. And I tell you another advantage of having SRO officers in our schools is our children, especially at the elementary age, and Bill Roberts, who's our past school board president, said this the other night so eloquently. Those kids are growing up with a smiling face in a police uniform that's there to help them and there to assist them and there when they fall down to pick them up, and they're seeing a positive police officer working with them when they're young, and hopefully they'll grow up to say, you know what, these guys are our friends, they're here to help us. And so I think that's another part of having a SRO in the school.
The SRO program is a great example of a crime prevention program in the city. But are there any other additional crime prevention measures that the city could provide or that the council feels passionate about, and what would those measures cost?
Well, I mean, obviously, we want to make sure that we have enough patrol officers on the streets and patrolling our shopping centers. You know, the crime, typically is going to happen in our shopping centers in those areas, and we want to have enough police officers patrolling the streets and being there so that when the call happens, when something does go wrong, that we have enough there to respond. And while they're responding, we have enough officers to be still in other areas. You know, we're in a unique situation too in Trussville because we're in an area where 2 major interstates intersect, and so there's also things on the interstate that happens. There's drug trafficking. There's all these things that happen that our guys have to respond to, and I'm going to tell you, they do a great job. And we just need this council right now has supported our police, and we need to continue to do that. And I think we will. I think our plan is to continue to support them with whatever they need.
Councilman Taylor, we've talked a lot about the assets of Trussville that the community has to offer. What is Trussville's greatest liability?
I think right now probably it's our appearance. It's just, when shopping centers, our roads aren't terrible. I mean, there's some that need work, but when you drive into our downtown, it's just not appealing. It just doesn't catch your eye. I think of some of the cities that's done revitalizations, and you drive in and you just say, man, this is a charming town. Well, that's what we want Trussville to be. That downtown needs to catch people's eye. When they drive in downtown, they need to say, I want to stop here. I want to find out what's going on. So I think that's probably our biggest issue right now is what it looks like, and we've got to address that. We've got to fix it.
You want to go ahead?
Sometimes you hear people discuss whether or not, well, all council members are at large on the Trussville City Council. Should we have districts? Is that something we need to look more seriously at, considering our size and population?
Again, we're growing so fast, and we have over the last 4, 8, 12 years, we've grown so fast. And when you're a city of 10 or 12,000 people, it really doesn't make sense. It also, when you're growing fast, it would be a continuous redistricting to make that happen. But I think if we continue to grow at the pace we have, that's something we're going to have to look at to make sure all areas are represented. Right now, it's an at-large election, and we're assigned different departments or divisions within the city. But if we continue to grow like we're growing, we're going to have to look at that.
Councilman Taylor, you've served one term. You're coming to the end of your first term.
We need to slow down and make sure we understand all the facts. We understand that the things we're being told are really the things that are going to happen. And so that's probably early on the biggest mistake I made.
This is a question we didn't have charted, but it's become an issue. It popped up a little bit in our political forum that took place at the Civic Center last week. And I think it's something that the people of Trussville probably are wondering about. Do you think Trussville needs a city manager?
Well, you either have a full-time mayor or a city manager. The mayor in our system really is the city manager. And so I think it's really a philosophy. If you have the right person, the right CEO in the city, then the mayor can be that manager. But we've got a big budget now, and we need to have an emphasis on finance. I think that's what I've brought to the council. That's my background is finance, and I think I've been able to help there. But we either need to go to a part-time mayor and a city manager, or we need to make sure we elect a mayor every time, not just this time, but every time. We need to elect one that can run our city on a day-to-day basis. And if they can, they're really serving as the city manager.
The council voted, your administration voted unanimously to raise the mayor's pay. That will begin with the next administration. So I guess that's your answer of what you think is who the administrator should be. It
is, and that's what for now, for our size city, that's what that's what this council decided. We've talked to, and before we did that, we talked to cities that have both. We've talked to cities that the mayor is the CEO. We've talked to the cities where they have a city manager. They both have good points. They both have downfalls. But for our size city and who we are, and the people that we have, to choose from, I think it was the right decision for this term. We may choose next time to do something else.
Well, Councilman Taylor, we appreciate you joining us. I know this was like the question firing range, being out there by yourself. So you're a good sport, and we appreciate you doing it. And now we're going to give you the opportunity to make some closing remarks.
Well, thank you all so much for doing this, and it's an honor for me to serve our city. Long before I started or even thought about becoming a city councilman, I was out here working in our city. I've served on the Trussville City Schools Foundation that raises money for our students. I've served on the Trussville Athletic Foundation that raises money for athletes in our city. Both of those I served as a board president for both of those organizations. I'm involved in Rotary, who does service projects in our city, and I served a term as president there. I just last year judged the Miss Trussville pageant, which is so out of my comfort zone. but I did it because I love this city, and I was doing those things long before I decided to become a councilman. I think the experience I have from an education, I think the experience I have from a workforce makes me a good choice to be a city councilman. I have a strong financial background, ran a manufacturing company for 22 years. I understand people, I understand business, but it's just not that experience. I was involved in the city. I have been for 15 years working in the city. I've been a part of the chamber. I've served as a chamber board president. I've tried to help recruit businesses to Trussville. So long before, this wasn't something I just sat in my den one night and said, you know what, I think I'll be a city councilman. I've been out there working. I've been out there trying to help. I've been out there raising money. I've been out there trying to promote our city. And that's why I wanted to become a city councilman. I wanted to be able to be in a position of leadership where I could help and even do more. And that's what I'll continue to do if you elect me on August the 23rd. Be sure to vote. That's important that we get out and vote. And I'd appreciate your support, and I'll continue to do the things I'm doing now.
Thank you. And as he said, please get out and vote on August 23rd. That's why we're bringing these forums to you, is so that you have a chance to sit down, listen to this information, and make a great decision.
Brandon, you're right, and we'll continue to bring candidates before you. We'll continue to ask questions, hopefully questions that you have going through your mind, because we want educated voters, but most importantly, we want active voters.
We do. So that wraps up this forum for this Trussville Place 2, and then join us back at 8 o'clock. We're going to have the contested seat in Pinson with Shannon Gallimore and Brad Walker.
Correct. So we'll be back about 8 o'clock. Just stay close to your computer. Hopefully, we won't deal with technical difficulties in round 2, and we'll be on time. But if we're not, be patient with us. This is new. We've done some live streaming, but we're processing over to doing more live streaming more consistently, which is requiring a bit more attention in the studio.
It is. So thanks so much for joining us, and we'll be back soon.
Thank you.
I'll read this story. Walker said his primary focus is going to be economic development in the community, support of local schools to provide opportunities for educational growth, public safety, and a revitalization of Main Street. Walker also said he believes in the quality and value of a good education. Walker is a network engineer with Spire Energy, formerly Alagasco, and a U.S. Marine Corps veteran. He and his wife Jennifer and their daughter Jordan years. The family supports local youth.
less structured than most forums. And I think what that's done is created a lot better dialogue with the candidates. We were real pleased last week. We had audio issues, so it was very difficult to hear the candidates.
Yeah.
But we straightened that out. Though we ran into another slight problem earlier, but we got the audio straightened out. But what you could hear, you could probably figure out it was a really good conversation.
Yeah, Hoyt and Joe had a great conversation.
Yeah. And that's what we're shooting for. When we get done, we want the people in. This was a Sonic launch for years. So this whole.
One, two, three. Test, test, test.
So when we put that on.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. This is a test. I usually fail my tests, but I will study better next time.
What's your zodiac sign?
Gemini. What date?
June 2nd.
May 31st.
It makes my legs
Trust
hurt.
me, it doesn't help. Because I do it about 50,000 times.
Oh, sorry. This is a test. Can you hear me now? I'm no longer with Verizon. No, it's Sprint now. Can you hear that? Oh, yes, that is yours. Yeah, he just laid mine down on the floor.
Clip it right here. Yes. And if you pull the string in a little tighter.
Oh, you're stuck on your. Yeah, you're stuck on your. You looped it over your necklace. Yeah, just unhook it and run it back up. There you go. You got it.
That's it. Let's check your audio now. Count to 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
We'll count.
6, 7,
2, 4, 6, 8.
I don't know if the elevators, they don't show any pictures of it online. It says that there's a lot of information.
Well, I'm a sucker for old houses.
I know.
If I were not really scared about the direction of Birmingham or Birmingham.
You'll count to 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
There's so many good
7,
things that are happening
8,
there now.
9, what?
You sound like you're underwater.
1, 2, 3, 4,
We've got
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
So you got to answer the school question.
10. Of course, it could be my chipmunk.
My wife teaches in Trussville. So as long as she teaches here, everybody can go to school here. And if she retires here, we can live anywhere. And she can finish in Trussville. So, yeah, they just passed that about 6 months ago. Which is, you know.
We would say that she was a band, they picked her up at the high school in Trussville, and I was like, how do these kids park? Park in Pinson,
Well, the teachers park is free.
I thought it was kind of cool.
Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, it's me.
She's still not.
Go ahead, Shannon.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Can't
6,
hear it all?
7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay. All right.
Well, I mean, you can hear me. I don't know about some of
All
this.
There's going to be.
They're gonna be mic one.
I don't know how they're going to share that though. I don't want you holding it.
We don't have a choice.
Alright.
Unless we could rig up some kind
A
of.
stick mic. Oh, it does. Oh, that. It's gonna stick mic with the plant right here. Take it to the next. Where are those Tribune mics that y'all use during football season? That's fine. Perfect. So,
Everything. All right, check mic one.
alright.
Test 1, 2, test.
Wait, I'm sorry, couldn't hear you.
Mic check 1. Mic check 1. Mic check.
It sounds like you can hear it, but it sounds like it's a little warm.
That's not a good
Yeah.
indicator.
It doesn't sound good.
All right, we here. Talk to me, Brandon.
Testing 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. You got it?
Talk to me, Brandon.
Testing 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1
You don't have enough play in that.
1 2 3 1 2 3. Well, I didn't know if I could run it under the desk. But yeah, no, we've got plenty. We'll make it. No, it's fine.
Oh, testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Welcome back. I'm Brandon Dawkins with the Trussville Tribune here with Scott Buttram, the publisher of the Trussville Tribune, and we're getting ready to bring you our second political forum tonight for a council seat in Pinson.
We are. In fact, this is the only contested council seat in Pinson. The incumbent, Joe Cochran, is running against the incumbent mayor, Hoyt Sanders. We had both of them on last week for our forum. So this is the only open seat, and it is contested.
It is, and you and I have talked about before this that these are interesting races in Pinson because they've had a city system in place, a city government system in place for 12 years, and it's been the same folks. So this is the first changeover.
It is. A lot of good things have happened in Pinson. They've had really good leadership there. The last 4 years, they have added some significant amenities to the city, really the last 8 years when you consider the library and then Bicentennial Park. The city's going in a very good direction right now. So the rest of the incumbents were unchallenged.
Well, let's get started with our guests tonight. We have Shannon Gallimore and Brad Walker, who are running for this seat that, as Scott mentioned, is vacated by Joe Cochran. So we're going to give y'all the opportunity to introduce yourself, as we mentioned. And Shannon, I'm going to let you go first with your opening remarks.
Hi, I'm Shannon Gallimore, and I moved to Pinson when I was 10 years old. I went to Pinson Elementary, I went to Rudd Middle School, and I graduated from Pinson Valley High School. From there, I went to the University of Montevallo. I got a degree in mathematics, and then I went to University of Alabama at Birmingham and got my teaching certificate and my master's in secondary math education. I got my educational specialist degree and just recently finished my educational leadership certification from UAB. I've been teaching since 1995. In 2006, I started teaching at Pinson Valley High School. I'm the cheerleading coach at Pinson Valley High School. I've been doing that since 2007. I'm married. My husband is also an educator. He's a band director at Fultondale High School. I have 2 children, Kelsey and Will. Kelsey just graduated from Pinson Valley High School, and she'll be attending UAB in the fall. My son Will be a senior this year at Pinson Valley High School. I attend Palmerdale United Methodist Church. I've been a member there for several years. I've been on the finance committee there for the last 3 years. And this summer, being a teacher, having the summers off, I had the great opportunity of working at the splash pad in Pinson, at the Pinson Bicentennial Park. And while working at the splash pad, I was able to get out and meet a lot of the citizens of Pinson, and that's really what catapulted me to want to run for city council, was meeting all the wonderful citizens of the Pinson area. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Brad, you're up.
My name is Brad Walker. I'm a network engineer for Spire Energy, formerly Alagasco. My wife Jennifer and I have been a resident of Pinson for the last 20 years. My daughter Jordan will be attending Pinson High School this fall as a freshman. I've been involved with youth sports, girls softball specifically, for the last 8 years in Pinson. I was the volunteer assistant softball coach at Rudd Middle School last year, which was a great experience. And I've recently accepted a position on the executive booster board at school. So I've volunteered for many charitable organizations around the city, most notably Toys for Tots, and probably less known is the Exceptional Foundation in Homewood.
Thank you both for that. And we'll go ahead and open with our first question. We'll go to Shannon, and Brad, you're going to answer the same question when Shannon gets through. Shannon, what is Pinson's single greatest accomplishment in its first 12 years as a city?
Wow, that's pretty tough. We've had a lot of great things that have happened in Pinson. We've made a lot of improvements to the Pinson Youth Park, where both of my kids played softball and baseball, and we've had the Pinson Library that they built recently, and that's going to be growing and moving over to the Rock School Center here shortly. We've had, of course, the park, and we've had so many people from, not just in Pinson, but from the surrounding communities show up at the Bicentennial Park and just marvel at how great and nice the park is. Several people have said, that it's one of the nicest ones around. We've got the splash pad there. We've got just an actual playground. We have the walking track. We've got a Frisbee golf course there. So we've had lots of things, lots of great things to happen in 12 years. It's hard for me to pinpoint just one.
Brad, the same question for you. What do you think is the single greatest accomplishment in Pinson in the last 12 years?
If I had to pick one thing, I would say it would be the library. I remember as a child growing up, I would stay with my aunt in Fultondale, and some of my favorite memories are of going to the library there in Fultondale and being able to watch the films they would show and just be able to read. I've always been an avid reader, so I think probably the library is our greatest single accomplishment.
Well, Shannon, you mentioned that you've worked at the splash pad this summer. I thought that was really interesting and gave you an opportunity to talk to citizens, and that spurred your decision to run. So I'd like to hear from both of you, actually, and we'll start with Shannon, about why you did decide to run for this vacant seat.
Well, like I mentioned, when I was working at this splash pad, and I really just started working there just to give me something to do during the summer, and it really turned out to be just such a blessing to be able to work there. What I noticed and what just really made me think, you know what, I really can do something about this, was having the people come in and not knowing that the park was even there, not knowing what was available at the park, not being aware when the splash pad opened. And then just realizing that not only at this park, we have this wonderful amphitheater where we show movies in the park. We've had bands come. We've had the Pinson Valley High School Choir come. And lots of events going on there and around the city and at Turkey Creek, which is just right down the road. And not being the communication. not having the communication between the citizens and the city council. And I really think that's something that I want to focus on, is building that communication. There's so many things that we can do that we're not utilizing to get the word out to the members of the community on what's going on in our city.
Brad, how about you? Why run?
Well, I made a run back in 2008 unsuccessfully, but I've always been very interested in government, and even from high school, which is not normal for a high school kid. And just when we decided on Pinson to be our home to raise our family, that's what really got me started. And back in 2008 was to make a difference in our city. The current administration, or the administration for the last 12 years, has done a great job with the city, and I just think that I have something to offer the city, and I would like to be a part of the growth of that city.
Brad, we're going to continue and let you start or answer this next question first. What is the most important thing for Pinson to accomplish in the next 4 years? The single most important thing?
I think the single most important thing, I got a whole list of them. I think the single most important thing is to provide a place for our youth, not only to be safe, but to learn, and learn in a safe environment. But our kids, when we were growing up, we were all over the place. And our kids tend to congregate at the school.
Right.
And I'd like to see them have a place of their own that they can say, this is our spot. This is where we can be kids. We can grow up here, we can be with our friends and not get in trouble, and we're safe here. And I think that's probably the biggest thing we can do is to provide them that, along with the education that they get.
Thank you. Shannon, same question for you. What is the single most important thing for Pinson to accomplish as a city next year?
Well, in order for Pinson to maintain the growth and the moving forward that we have been able to do and accomplish over the last 12 years, and that is to get more revenue for the city. And the only way that we can do that is to get businesses into the city. I know you would agree with me. We want some more restaurants there. I'd like to see a hardware store there, maybe an auto parts store. A big anchor store would be fabulous if we could get one of those. But if we don't have businesses into the city generating money for our city, then we're not going to have any money. We're not going to be able to grow, and then we're going to become stagnant, and that is certainly not what we want to do.
Shannon, thank you for that. And I've got a follow-up question for that. We've been covering, the Trussville Tribune has been covering Pinson for 6, maybe 7 years now. What I have heard consistently is we need more restaurants, we need a hardware store. So I'm hearing the same things through our second municipal election. Do you have any specific ideas for how to attract these restaurants and this hardware store that people in Pinson want?
Well, and the city council that we've had for the last 12 years, they've been working to do that. They've been trying to get businesses out to come, and build in the city. The problem is, on paper, Pinson doesn't look very profitable. But what we've got to go out, and we've just got to be really aggressive. And of course, that starts at the top, being very aggressive to go out and get those businesses actually to the city. Get them to come and visit our city. Get them to visit the restaurants that are already there. Talk to the restaurant owners that are there. Find out how they're doing. Find out what their profits are. There is not a restaurant in Pinson that is hurting for people to come and eat, because we're not only serving the people of Pinson, we're serving the people from Aniana, we're serving the people from Locust Fort and Blount County. I mean, they're coming through there, and they're driving straight through Pinson, and they're going to the other cities around us, and we don't want that. We want them to stop in Pinson, eat in Pinson, shop in Pinson, spend their money in Pinson. So in order to do that, we've just got to be more aggressive than we have been in the past, because they've certainly been trying to get businesses there. We just got to be, more, we just got to go out and get them.
Brad, same question for you. What would you do to attract these businesses that the Pinson residents have been asking for?
Well, Scott, you know, we're a young city still compared to the cities around us. And as we've all seen with the economy lately, retail is fickle. It comes and goes. So one of the things I would like to see is to focus on entrepreneurs. We have a great quality of life in Pinson. We are a safe city, and we have workers there. We have workers that would like to stay closer to home. And if we can attract entrepreneurs with business ideas to our city and utilize that as a catalyst to bring businesses in. As a softball coach, we travel around the state, out of the state, and we see a lot of these tournaments that we have a great part to play in, and it's being improved constantly. And bringing tournaments like that into our city would be a huge source of income and would draw businesses as well.
Along those same lines, how big of an economic impact do you think that the Northern Beltline will make in Pinson? And Brad, we could start with you and then we'll move to Shannon.
I think the Northern Beltline is going to make a huge impact on our area. It's coming right through just north of the main business district of Pinson and right there in the Palmerdale area, and it's just right there, and there's land there to be used, and I think it's going to make a huge economic impact on our area if we can show that we are a viable city to bring businesses.
Shannon, same question.
Right, I agree with exactly what Brad said. I mean, it's right there. There's lots of open land there. I mean, it's just begging for businesses to just come and build there. It'd be a perfect place for people to, jump off the interstate, go grab something to eat, get some gas, and hop back on and be on their way.
I want to follow up and kind of stay in this mode. Shannon, you touched on something I think that's important, and that is that Pinson draws from a surrounding area, draws from Locust Fork, people from Aniana and different surrounding areas that may be coming in to eat and shop there. When the Trussville Tribune expanded coverage into Clay, first into Clay and then into Pinson, that was the theory behind all of it, is that this really is a market area. Trussville relies heavily on people from Clay and Pinson to shop here. The large shopping centers do the same thing. How important is it to create more communication between neighboring cities in terms of marketing and drawing more interest to the northeastern area of Jefferson County? Shannon, we'll start with you.
Well, I think it's very important that we have good relations with the communities that surround us because, we are going to have people, just like people from Pinson drive to Clay and shop, and we drive to Trussville and shop. That can go both ways, and I think that collaboration is very important, and it can't do anything but support all the cities, just like with the newspaper. And like you mentioned with the park, why not have collaboration with the local youths and have a huge community sports competition,
yeah.
Or and have all those cities. If we're limited to our 4 or 5 parks, softball fields, why not expand it into the other cities? My daughter played softball for several years, and we would go to tournaments, and we would be in one city for one game, drive to the neighboring city for another game, and all the cities, they all benefit from that financially, with people spending and eating there in those areas.
Brad, same question for you. How important is it to communicate regionally with other cities?
I believe that as a city, ourselves, and such a young city, we have to make it extremely important that we think regionally first. Only then, by collaborating with the other cities, can we bring those businesses to our area. And it's not just about Pinson, it's about this area as a whole.
Changing gears a little bit, we mentioned to you before this forum that we wanted you to have the opportunity to ask each other questions. So we're going to move into that now. And Brad, I'm going to let you start and ask Shannon a question first.
Well, she's already answered the question I had to ask her.
Easy on me.
You want me to let her start, but you can think of something else?
Sure. Great idea.
You go first. You ask Brad.
Okay. Well, Brad and I had actually talked about this before. We were trying to figure out what we could ask each other, because I really feel like we both are on the same page with what we want with the city. Obviously, we wouldn't be running for this office if we didn't both want what's best for the city. So, this is not an I got you question, but I just wanted, to know, what is your vision for Pinson? Where do you see us being in 4 years when this seat comes up for election again? What would you like to see?
4 years is a short time frame, but to start with the 4 years, I would like to see us on a road to be in, the things like the Butterbean Festival have kind of put us on the map. Our becoming a city has put Pinson on the map, but I would like to see us begin to grow like our neighboring sister cities have, like Trussville and Clay and Fultondale and Gardendale. Those are much more well-established cities, and I know we've got a long road to go on that. But at the same time, I still think that there's room for us to be the small town Pinson that everybody's always known. We can still have, I've traveled the country with my work, and there are cities and towns out there that have the big Walmarts and the Lowe's and all that stuff, but you wouldn't know it coming into town. It's still that Mayberry town that everybody wants to live in. And that's the vision I have, is to have that small town feel, the community, the people working together, the communication with all the community, and have that. That's the vision, is to have that small town community, but with the economic development.
That's a good answer.
Now you have the opportunity to ask her, or you can flip the same question around on her.
That is a great question. What is your vision of Pinson in the future?
Well, again, I have to agree with you. I do like very much the small town feel that we have, but we do definitely need the economic growth there. Something that I would like to see, especially here recently with our two of our contract deputies moving on into the schools and becoming resource officers, I would like to see the development of our own police department. And I know the city has already done some background work on that, and have gotten some numbers together for that. And in order for that to happen, we do have to have the economic growth there. I would also like to see more people annexed into the city, again, just to help with that economic growth. And I do want one of those big anchor stores. I do want, to see the youth park grow and develop, possibly even have a basketball court for the community versus going to some of the local churches. Maybe expand there at the park and have some bigger areas at the park. And like you mentioned, have something for our teenagers to do. I mean, I have 2 teenagers of my own. One is getting ready to go off to college. I still have one at home, and they're always looking for something to do, and possibly even expand the splash pad area to for the older kids, but give them something to do here in their city versus going to some other city. But yet, like you said, keep that hometown feel.
Brad, I'm going to follow up on Shannon's answer with a question for you.
Okay.
She just mentioned Pinson possibly forming its own police department, which is one of the questions that we were going to ask. So, Pinson is a relatively safe city. We know that. We have safe communities in this part of the county. However, crime filters in to every city. How important is it for Pinson to form its own police department?
Well, I think as our city grows, it's going to become increasingly important. The current council has done their research, and they've kind of tabled that for now, and I'm sure with good reason. But I think it is going to become increasingly important. But as we research that going forward, and as we start to make progress towards that, I think it's also important to involve the community. In my neighborhood, we have a neighborhood watch, and I think it's important that that the city be a part of establishing those little groups in the communities that we live in, because it's been a huge help to us in our little neighborhood. So I think police department is going to be increasingly important to Pinson, and I think it's something that we should continue to pursue.
Okay, let's continue with things we hear from our Pinson readers, things that they seem to prioritize and have a lot of questions and want information on. The police, Pinson Forming Its Own Police Department is one of the major topics that we hear from our Pinson readers. The second would be schools. The city of Pinson contributes financially to the county schools and the city limits and has formed an education foundation to further that cause. But the city has no control over the direction of the schools within the city. How important is it for Pinson to form its own school system? And if it is important, how would they fund that? Shannon, we'll start with you on this.
Well, being an educator, and especially being an educator at Pinson Valley High School, I would love nothing more than for us to have a brand new school. We have been very fortunate in the last 10 years or so to have some nice additions added onto the school, but you know, when you're teaching in the 21st century and you're trying to use the technology that we have now in a 1970s classroom that has maybe 2 or 3 plugs in the room, it's just not feasible, and it just doesn't work very well. Unfortunately, I don't think financially Pinson's going to ever be able to form their own school system. I think we're going to be dependent on the Jefferson County Board of Education. And all that we can do there is to be advocates for our own school. I personally have sat down with Dr. Pouncey and spoken to him about the conditions of some of the classrooms, about the football field, our need for a practice field, the need for just cleaning up the school, and we've just got to get out there and talk and be that squeaky wheel, and you know, and that's how we're going to get things done, is just to keep, you know, going to the board, talking to the superintendent, and just not letting down until they do what we ask them to do.
Brad, same question for you. How important is it for Trussville to form their own school system, and how would you fund it if they did that?
Well, I would hope we would form it in Pinson, but
Pinson would be.
In the immediate term, I don't think that is a high priority. I think the council has worked well with the school and supporting the school. All the schools there in Pinson, Kermit Johnson, Pinson Elementary, Rudd, and Pinson Valley High. The council has been very, very good to the schools, and I think that will continue. I think it is, I wouldn't say never, but I don't think it's a high priority right now, but it is something that we should continue to consider as we grow as a city.
Let's stay with education. According to the Alabama State Department of Education, less than 7% of the 10th graders at Pinson Valley High School meet or exceed standards. Will that negatively impact attracting new residents with school-age children? Let's start with Brad.
You know, one of the things that we considered when we moved to Pinson from Centerpoint was the school systems, and we asked our friends that lived in Pinson. We talked to people that we would meet that were from Pinson, and all of them had excellent things to say about the school system. I think that people look for a safe place for their kids as much as they do for the education. I know there have been changes at the school, and I think they're for the better, and I think the kids are going to benefit from that, and I think you're going to see that those percentages go higher. You're going to see that those percentages become the 20, 40, 50, 80% are going to exceed or meet those standards.
Shannon, you're in the trenches at the high school, so I know you have a good perspective on this.
Right, and I am on the school leadership team there at the high school, and we just met yesterday, as a matter of fact, and went over some numbers. It's from the ACT that the 10th graders take, which is the Aspire test. And what we have to remember about that Aspire test is you're giving this test to 10th graders who have not quite had all the material taught to them yet that they need to, but it is in preparation. So it's kind of a skewed data to look at that and say that that only 7% meet or exceed. We have really good educators in all 4 of the schools, and we just have to continue to work and get those good teachers into the school and start making that difference. We've also had lots of changes in the educational system over the last few years, where we've changed over into the Common Core system, and that's had a huge impact on educators, just trying to increase that rigor in the classroom and to push that to kids. And that's a difficult process when students aren't used to that type of rigor in their classroom, to really get them to start progressing and showing on the testing. But that is something that will come. I mean, it's something that it is a process. It's not something that's going to change overnight. And just like Brad said, we've had a change in administration over the last year, and that impacts the school. I do believe it starts from the top and goes down, and they are pushing good instruction in the classrooms. They are pushing, increase your rigor, increase your DOK, increase your level 3 thinking, just trying to really get those students to think for themselves and to improve. And we are working on bringing those grades up on the ACT and bringing up those scores.
Brad, we're going to go back to you. What is Pinson's greatest asset, and what is Pinson's greatest liability?
I think Pinson's greatest asset is its people. Everywhere you go in Pinson, there's a friendly face. There's how do you do? There's not there's no snobbishness going on. You see somebody in the supermarket, it's hey, how are you, whether they know you or not. So I think Pinson's greatest asset is its people. Probably its worst is Main Street. Main Street is, I would love to see Main Street revitalized, but as we both know, it's a flood zone, and it's going to be hard to do something there. But I would like to see something tried, because that's a part of Pinson's history, and I would like to see that something done there that people could come and see. Hey, this is Pinson.
Shannon, same question for you. Pinson's greatest asset and Pinson's greatest liability.
I'm going to agree with Brad. I do think the people are what make Pinson great. And just like he said, you can go anywhere and just start talking to the people and carrying on a conversation. They are very personable. The hometown feel, I think that is what I like about Pinson. That's why when, like I said, I moved to Pinson when I was 10, but when I had a choice to decide where to build my house and raise my family, I picked Pinson because of the hometown feel and the people that live there. And our greatest liability, I'm afraid, is the possibility of becoming stagnant and not growing. And that's going to happen if we don't get businesses there. We see in the surrounding areas, there's a couple of communities that surround us that are kind of stalemate. And we don't want that to happen in Pinson. So if we don't start getting some economic growth in the city, then that's where we could end up.
Well, we appreciate both of your time so much, and now we're going to give you the opportunity to make closing remarks. And I think we started with Shannon in opening, so we'll start with Brad and let you make your closing remarks first.
Brandon, Scott, I appreciate your time tonight, and I appreciate the people taking the time out to listen to what we have to say. And I look forward to the possibility of being a council member for Pinson. I think that we have a lot of work to do to grow Pinson, and I think if we work together, we can accomplish that.
Shannon, your turn.
Yes, thank you again for inviting us. And Brad, it was very nice to meet you. This is the first time I've met Brad,
yep.
So it was nice meeting you. And I just want to say that, I care about Pinson. I care about the citizens of Pinson, and I want to move Pinson forward. And I just ask that on August 23rd that you get out there there, no matter what community you live in. All the communities are going to have voting on August 23rd for their prospective seats and mayors. So get out there and place your vote and do your civic duty and help your city to grow, because that's what I intend to do for Pinson.
Well, thank you both again, and it will be a very interesting race in Pinson for both of these seats, the council seat and the mayor's position. And so we'll watch and see, and we hope that you'll take the opportunity to go back and listen to some of these answers and make a good decision on August 23rd. I don't know about you, but as we've done these, I continue to be impressed with people who take the initiative to do this.
I agree.
To run.
The quality of candidate in all three of the cities that we're covering has been outstanding.
Yes.
Everyone that's visited with us certainly has their community at heart and are putting it first, putting service above self. So that's what you want to see in the community, especially in local government. There's nothing closer to the people than local government.
That's right. And we're going to be back here with you tomorrow night with 2 more seats. We're going to have a seat in Trussville, the place 3 seat that has 3 candidates in it, and the 1 opposed seat in Clay. And we'll have those with us. And that, again, is at 6:30 and 8 p.m. tomorrow night.
That's right. We'll see you then.